In ancient America, leadership wasn't always earned through age or seniority. Across many civilizations, from the towering cities of the Maya to the vast mound cities of North America, some leaders ascended to power while still children. These child kings weren't accidents of birth or desperation. They were often the result of deep spiritual and cultural beliefs that linked divine favor with bloodlines, omens, and celestial signs. Take, for instance, the Maya. Among their ruling dynasties, there are multiple records of boys being crowned kings as young as 5 or 6 years old. Stelae, or stone monuments, depict these child rulers receiving headdresses, scepters, and ceremonial regalia. But these were not puppet kings. They were believed to embody the God's will on earth. Their bloodline was sacred. To be born into a ruling dynasty was to be chosen by cosmic order. The elite priesthood would prepare these boys for kingship through ritual instruction, not just political training. In some cases, astronomical alignments dictated coronation dates. The child king became the center of ritual cycles. His life was entwined with the well-being of the city. Similarly, among the Mississippian cultures, like those who built Cahokia, evidence points to hereditary rulers, possibly including child kings. Burial mounds, such as Mound 72, reveal individuals buried with hundreds of sacrificial offerings, suggesting elite status from birth. These societies used objects of power, engraved copper plates, stone gorgets, effigies, to visually proclaim divine status. A child king in such a world was not simply a ruler, he was a living symbol. In many cultures, he was seen as a bridge between the heavens and the people. His coronation was not just political, it was spiritual. But with great power came great expectations. These young kings were surrounded by warrior guardians, priestly tutors, and nobles eager to shape or manipulate them. Yet the role also demanded personal courage. Child kings were often required to undergo brutal tests of endurance, proving their right to rule. In the Andes, highland Inca ceremonies sometimes involved child leaders undergoing ritual fasts or offerings on mountain peaks. In North America, there are fewer surviving records, but oral traditions from plains and eastern tribes speak of young leaders required to confront death, endure isolation, or face supernatural trials. And so, across ancient America, the child king was more than a political figure. He was a chosen vessel. His life carried the burden of his people's fate, shaped from the earliest age to walk a path of divine leadership. But if the child king held sacred power from above, the warrior had to earn it from below. In the warrior societies of ancient America, strength alone was never enough. True warriors had to undergo sacred initiation rites that tested not only their physical ability, but their mental, emotional, and spiritual fortitude. From the frozen tundras of the far north to the steamy forests of the Amazon, boys were transformed into warriors through grueling, often brutal rituals. These rites weren't cruelty for cruelty's sake. They were deeply symbolic processes that marked the death of childhood and the birth of a new identity. Among the Mandan of the northern plains, one of the most infamous rituals was the Okipa ceremony. Young men aspiring to become warriors were suspended by hooks pierced through their chest muscles, hung from poles while chanting and enduring extreme pain. The ordeal was a test of endurance and spiritual vision. Only those who passed were seen as full men. Similar endurance rites are recorded among the Sundance traditions across plains tribes. In Mesoamerica, Aztec warrior initiation was equally intense, though far more structured within the military orders. Boys trained from a young age in schools called Telpochcali, learning discipline, weaponry, and religious devotion. Their first capture of an enemy in battle marked the moment they were welcomed into adulthood. Among the Maya, warrior initiation may have involved ritual bloodletting, cutting the tongue, ears, or genitals as offerings to the gods. These acts of personal sacrifice weren't just tests. They were seen as necessary for the gods to grant protection, power, and fertility. In the Amazon, warrior training began early. The Yanomami, for example, practiced trial by combat, where young men engaged in ritualized fights using wooden clubs. These fights were symbolic, not to kill, but to endure pain and display courage. In the Andes, the young warriors of the Inca were sent on spiritual quests to mountain shrines. Some were chosen as capacocha, children offered in ritual sacrifice after long pilgrimages. This was the ultimate offering, not a punishment, but a sacred honor. Those selected were often of noble birth, treated with reverence, and buried in high mountain tombs with rich offerings. These sacrificial initiations blurred the line between warriorhood, kingship, and divine purpose. Even in North America, warrior societies like the Cheyenne's Dog Soldiers had their own codes of bravery and initiation. To be part of such a brotherhood meant strict discipline, communal responsibility, and readiness to die for the people. But initiation wasn't always violent. Some cultures emphasized isolation, fasting, and vision quests. Among many Algonquian and Siouan tribes, young boys entered the forest alone, fasting for days until a dream or spirit animal appeared. This vision would guide their identity, role, and purpose. They returned with a new name, a new totem, and a new place in the tribe. These initiations weren't just physical, they were spiritual rebirths. They reinforced the belief that true power came from within, granted by the spirits and earned through suffering, endurance, and revelation. Across the ancient Americas, to become a warrior was to pass through fire, and once past, the boy never returned. He emerged transformed, ready to serve, defend, and if needed, die for his people. Initiation wasn't just about becoming a warrior, it was also a gateway into elite warrior societies. These groups operated with strict codes, symbols, and often hidden knowledge. Across ancient America, such orders shaped not only the military structure of their civilizations, but their very cosmology. In the Plains cultures, especially the Lakota and Cheyenne, warrior societies like the Kit Fox Society or Dog Soldiers held immense prestige. These weren't just elite fighters, they were spiritual protectors. Induction required not only bravery, but a commitment to self-sacrifice. Members were expected to stand their ground in battle no matter what, even tying themselves to stakes with sashes so they could not flee. In Mesoamerica, warrior orders were even more defined. Among the Aztecs, two of the most revered were the Jaguar Knights and the Eagle Warriors. Entry into these ranks wasn't just earned by battle, it was a sacred elevation. Warriors adorned themselves in animal skins and ceremonial gear that symbolized their spiritual link to the creatures they emulated. A Jaguar Knight wasn't just wearing a jaguar's skin. He was believed to be channeling the jaguar's spirit. In the Andes, similar orders existed within the Inca military structure. The Aucacuna were noble warriors, trained from youth in Cusco, the heart of the empire. These warrior nobles were also expected to be philosophers, astronomers, and priests. Initiation here often involved sacred trials at temples or on mountaintops, places where the line between this world and the next was believed to thin. Some warrior societies had secret languages, gestures, and codes of conduct passed only from initiate to initiate. Oral traditions ensured their rituals remained hidden from outsiders, and often from lower-ranking members of their own communities. Even among North American tribes, such as the Iroquois, warrior bands often had unique symbols, masks, or regalia used only in war councils or spiritual dances. Membership was not guaranteed. Failure during initiation meant exclusion or disgrace. Many societies also had age grades. Young boys would progress through stages of increasing responsibility and ritual exposure until they reached full warrior status. This created a lifelong bond of brotherhood, duty, and honor. The bond wasn't just military, it was spiritual. Each member swore allegiance not just to his tribe, but to the ancestors, to the land, and to the invisible powers believed to guide battle and fate. Warrior societies weren't merely tools of violence, they were keepers of balance. Not every boy initiated into warrior life stayed a fighter. Some were destined to lead. Among many tribes, especially in the eastern woodlands, the path from warrior to chief was paved through ritual, vision, and wisdom. A young boy, marked by a dream or a sign, perhaps born during a celestial event or surviving a deadly illness, might be chosen early. He'd be placed under the tutelage of elders, trained in diplomacy, astronomy, herbal knowledge, and sacred lore. His warrior initiation would be only the first stage. In Puebloan societies, boys of noble blood or spiritual importance were brought into Kiva societies, underground ceremonial chambers, where they learned the sacred stories, dances, and rituals of their people. Each step deeper into the Kiva was a step closer to spiritual authority. In some Maya cities, kings were also war leaders, and their ascension began in childhood with bloodletting rituals, symbolic battles, and offerings to the gods. Even outside Mesoamerica, initiation often involved symbolic death and rebirth. Among the Tlingit and Haida of the Pacific Northwest, boys destined for high status were sometimes secluded for weeks or months. They fasted, received tattoos, and underwent body modification, all marking them as set apart. Tattoos, piercings, and body paint were not just decoration, they were maps of transformation. In many cultures, leadership required more than strength. It required connection to spirit. Boys were taught the importance of humility, patience, and wisdom. They learned to interpret dreams, commune with ancestors, and act as mediators between the physical and spiritual worlds. Some cultures used ordeals involving fear or the supernatural. In the Amazon, young boys might be sent into the forest alone, not just to fast, but to face spirit beings. In Cree and Ojibwe cultures, boys might sleep on burial grounds or near sacred stones to seek visions. Their survival and what they dreamed would guide their future. Leadership, in this context, wasn't a reward. It was a responsibility. It came at a cost. The boy who passed these trials emerged with the scars of knowledge and the burden of serving the people. He was no longer a child. He was the vessel of law, of protection, of balance. The path to leadership began in the warrior's fire, but ended in the heart of the people. Why did ancient America place so much importance on these brutal, beautiful, and mystical rites of passage? Today, in the modern world, we often lack such clearly marked transitions. But in ancient America, these moments of change were sacred. They told the boy, "You are no longer a child. You have become something new, a warrior, a leader, a man." These initiations connected generations. They rooted people in their land, in their ancestors, and in a shared cosmology. And they served a deeper psychological purpose, transforming fear into strength, confusion into clarity, and chaos into order. Whether through pain, isolation, or spiritual vision, these rites forged identity. They asked not just, "Are you strong enough?" but "Are you worthy?" Many of these traditions, though suppressed or misunderstood, still echo in indigenous communities today. Some have evolved into modern ceremonies, others have been revived through oral history, and some remain secret, known only to elders, whispered in song, hidden in the lines of old tattoos and sacred places. But across the ancient Americas, from the Andes to the Great Lakes, from the red cliffs of the southwest to the icy forests of the north, one truth remains. The path to adulthood was never passive. It was a journey of fire. It was earned through trial, and those who emerged from that crucible bore the mark of transformation forever.